Hi, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about Philip K. Dick's Exegesis, and I'm going to do a little demonstration at the end of the video involving a toilet paper roll. Philip K. Dick was a science fiction writer who wrote 45 novels and over 120 short stories during his career. Several of his works were adapted into movies and some have become well known, such as Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, or The Adjustment Bureau. I have to confess that I have so far only read Valis and Time Out of Joint, but I'm definitely planning on reading more by him. So the Exegesis of Philip K. Dick was published after Dick's death and contains his thoughts, ideas, and personal reflections. The book is a collection of Dick's handwritten notes, journal entries, and letters written between 1974 and 1982, his final years. He had a series of mystical and visionary experiences during this time that profoundly influenced his understanding of reality, identity, and the nature of existence. He was interested in theology, metaphysics, and the nature of the divine, and also in extraterrestrial entities. The exegesis is Dick's attempt to analyze and interpret these experiences in order to comprehend their significance. The book is highly complex and covers a wide range of topics, including theology, Gnosticism, the nature of time, and the possibility of multiple realities. The topics were triggered by a vision that he describes having had in February and March of 1974, which is why he refers to the event as 2374. While the Exegesis of Philip K. Dick, the book, has 900 pages, the original collection of papers from which the book was edited comprises 8,000 pages. There is speculation that the reason for the 1974 vision was a result of his heavy amphetamine use, a temporal lobe epilepsy, some other neurochemical imbalance, or a post-traumatic reaction to a car crash that he was in around that time. Maybe these factors played a role, but in an interview he gave in 1979, he talked about having taken amphetamines for quite a long time, just in order to keep up with his writing, but he said that he only took LSD twice in his life. In any event, in the book we're looking at today, he not only describes the knowledge that was infused in him while undergoing his 1974 vision, but he also tries to understand what happened to him and goes to great lengths to find out by consulting both ancient texts and scientific literature available to him at the time. So the book not only reveals his exploration of boundaries, between what's real and what's perceived, but he also documents his inner struggle. The descriptions and contents of his visionary experiences read a bit like one of his science fiction novels. But as with the rest of his work, we can find both inspiration and stimulation, when we study them. Most of his writing sounds prophetic, and there is so much to unpack. The material is very accessible, transparent, entertaining, and thrilling. So if you keep an open mind, this can be a great read and inspiring to you. I'm going to pick out some of the themes that intrigue me personally. And I have to say, I will lay out these concepts the way I understood them, so it's entirely possible that I misunderstood them in part, which is yet another reason why you should read the book yourselves. Dick feels that we are living in a time where time as forward-moving force field is vanishing. In such a situation, a retrograde energetic life form or force is flowing back, as it were, towards the now. What happens as the universe's expansion begins to weaken? That force moves backward from the end of time, pouring into people, allowing individuals to experience Atman, the spiritual life principle of the universe, in themselves. A person infused with that force can perceive the world differently. It is a heightened sense of awareness that allows you to perceive phenomena otherwise not perceivable. Dick describes the phenomenon as gold and red illuminated leather-like plasmatic life form from the future, which he refers to as logos. In this context, logos is to be understood as the universal law that governs the cosmos. Dick felt that this life form or energy held vast amounts of information that is in theory available to everyone. A lot of times this sort of phenomenon is not only described as form of revelation, but also as a source of creativity. There are many instances in which artists have reported that they don't feel to be the source of their own work, but that art making is a sort of transpersonal experience in which the artist draws on a source that they feel to be outside of their own personality. As to his writing, Dick says, in his writing, Dick not only reveals what he experienced, but he also tries to wrap his head around what has happened to him. In this context, he explores the possibility that what triggered his vision was a sudden enhanced firing of neurons, or more specifically, a coming online of his right hemisphere. Prior to his experience, he had been experimenting with taking massive amounts of orthomolecular vitamins, and considers the possibility that this has actually led to the balancing out of both hemispheres in his brain. He mentions reading about Robert Ornstein's research, a psychologist who pioneered research on the bilateral specialization of the brain. Actually, I'll have to look into Ornstein's work myself. His book, The Psychology of Consciousness, seems a classic, so I definitely want to read that soon. Anyway, so while Dick sees a correlation between possible physical changes in his brain and his visions, he is certain that, brain chemistry alone is not enough to having triggered the visions. There needs to be a trigger or stimulus from outside the brain that can spark this kind of state of being. He's convinced that the process overrides ego consciousness, and that is where the other, or God, or universal mind, or whatever you want to call it, comes into the picture. And as to the trigger causing visions in humans, Dick writes, and he describes this altered state of being as a coming together of opposites. So while the left hemisphere seems to house the ego-mind experience of the individual, the right hemisphere is the seat of the unconscious, through which all humans are connected into a unified whole, as it were. And not only all humans, but all of creation. part of Dick's 2374 experience was the fluctuation of time. In his vision, he experienced ancient Rome around him, almost superimposed on his actual environment. So he became interested in the nature of time as well. It is in this context that he came upon a string of research that speculated that besides there being regular linear time, there could be something called hypertime or orthogonal time. In time, he develops the idea that orthogonal time and linear time move opposite to each other, and he links orthogonal time as holding Plato's exemplar forms. If you think of orthogonal time as a three-dimensional cylinder rolling on a two-dimensional sheet of linear time, this becomes imaginable. The cylinder or barrel, standing for orthogonal time, holds Platonic pure forms, which are being imprinted on linear time in cyclical fashion. So what we experience with our waking left hemispheric dominated minds is just a projection of ultimate reality. So this is a normal piece of paper, and let's just, for the sake of the concept or the argument, think that this two-dimensional sheet of paper represents space-time. And I took this toilet paper roll to represent a sort of hyperdimensional, probably holographic structure. And the way I envisioned his concept of orthogonal time to work was that, because I was trying to wrap my head around why these two types of times would move sort of against each other, but when you demonstrate it like that, it starts to make sense. So imagine this is this hyperspace. This is our two-dimensional representation of space-time. So when the orthogonal time moves in one direction, you can see the space-time actually moving in the opposite direction, as it seems, as it were. So the orthogonal time sort of imprints on a continuous basis, Platonic pure forms, as it were. So, and in so doing, it creates our past as we move along, okay? So we have the future and we have the past, and they move against each other. I hope that makes sense. Now, if you look at this thing sideways, you can actually see how... wait, let me grab a pen. So if this is the direction that our time moves in, there is always a point where the two meet. And here you can see the perpendicular sort of, situation going on. So you have regular space-time and you have orthogonal time being perpendicular to regular space-time, right? So what I wrote about in my own book was that I believe human beings actually can access, in that case, orthogonal time and everything that sort of hologram holds, including all knowledge that has ever existed, by being entirely in the moment. So, and being entirely in the moment requires you basically not to be attached to anything in the past or anticipating any kind of future, which I liken to being totally out of ego consciousness, And yeah, so I think the two concepts really speak to each other, and I found it really helpful to look into this orthogonal time sort of concept. So I hope I could inspire you to actually pick up this book by Philip K. I can highly recommend his other books as well, of course. I just like people that are open-minded enough to, and not, and actually free enough and not scared to put their ideas out there, and I really appreciate Dick's work. It certainly inspires me on a continuing basis. And so that was it for today. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.